Howdy, everybody! You're watching Cole the Corn Star. And also, big thank you to Sid Dillon and Chevrolet for sponsoring this video. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the farm. It's a bit of a rainy day today, so we're gonna be starting our activities with some non-muddy projects. First up, we got Champion Seed here. They're picking up some of their seed boxes. We gotta get out the forklift. Oh, come on. All right, Erickson, buddy, here we go. Fire right up. Beautiful. There we go, we now have some more of our driveway back. Next up, we're gonna do some field scouting. I have some really exciting news. We planted our soybeans this year earlier than we ever have in the entire history of our farm, and check this out. They are already up and we can row them. We got about 2/10 of an inch of rain last night, and it's already starting to dry up, but this 2/10 was absolutely beautiful because with these soybeans just poking through the ground, some of them are still trying to break through, so the 2/10 softened it up nicely, and this should help us get a really nice emergence. At this particular growth stage, soybeans are pretty fragile, and sometimes what we'll see, if these chunks of dirt are too hard for the soybean to grow through, they'll actually end up snapping their head off trying to push through the ground. So this 2/10 of rain came at the absolute perfect time. On top of crop scouting, I'm also field scouting, and on my field scouting adventure, I see we have a wet hole right here along the road. We normally don't have a wet hole right here. Last summer, they were doing some work in this ditch. The wind turbine people, they're reshaping this, and I suspect that they hit a tile line that is under here. I can actually see it boiling out right there in the ditch. So I'm gonna get a hold of them and see if they will come out and fix this. That will get rid of all the standing water in the ditch. And right now it's actually running through the culvert under the road, and it's causing the other side to be flooded as well. And we actually just redid this waterway and reseeded it, so it'd be kind of nice if we could get this to dry up so that way we could get our grass seed to be able to establish. You can see the wet spot a lot better from this angle. It looks like a shadow on the ground, but that is not a shadow. That is a saturated area of the field. Next up, I have a tape measure. I have 2 marking stakes, and I have a bunch of flags. We're gonna do a corn emergence test. For an emergence test, the first thing we need to do is measure out 1/1000th of an acre, which is 17 feet 5 inches. So we got 1 stake in, we're gonna measure back 17 feet 5 inches. Way back here. We got stake 1 right there, and we got stake 2 up there. So the distance between them is 1/1000th of an acre. So now we're gonna start laying some flags. So what we're doing is we're looking for corn that is just starting to stick out of the ground, like that one, and every time we see that, we're gonna put a flag beside it. I planted 34,500 plants per acre on this farm, so since we have 1/1000th of an acre right here, we should find 34 or 35 plants. However, just because we planted them all, that does not mean we are going to find all of them right now, because the seeds have the tendency of coming out of the ground at different times. In an ideal world, they'll all come out of the ground at the same time, but we're gonna measure that because the more even we can get it, generally speaking, the better the farm is going to do. The more uneven, the worse the farm is going to do. And I want to be able to evaluate that right up here at day 1 of coming out of the ground. Ha! I found one. Ooh, I found 2. Ooh, 3, 4. Ha ha, they're all over. This is a good sign. There we go, we ended up finding 10, so now we're gonna come back in 24 hours with a different colored flag, and we're gonna keep repeating that exact same process until all of them come up. For field number 2, I actually ran out of orange flags and had to get some green ones, but we have 25, so much better on this one. The main objective behind the emergence test is for me to figure out which fields are going to get a high management approach. Corn is a lot like a litter of puppies. If there are big puppies and little puppies in the same litter, you get the runt of the litter effect, and then the little ones always stay small and stay behind. Corn works the same way. So if we have some plants come out early and then the other ones come out later, they compete with each other and the little one loses and the big one gains. Where if all the puppies are the same size or all the corn plants are the same size, they grow evenly. They take nutrients in evenly. This is what I want in my cornfield. So the Emergence test is telling me, do we have runts of the litter or are they all the same size? So as of right now, it is looking like the second field, the one with 25 out, is gonna be the one that's gonna get high management.
12 hours later.
It is now the next day. It has started to dry up quite a bit more, so we are going to be working in the underground movie theater, and we're gonna try to get this thing 100% ready to go for concrete. But before we get started with that, our tool layout, project layout area, AKA the existing basement of the house, is an absolute mess. So we're gonna get this straightened up first, and then we're gonna get to work. Step number one, we're gonna try to get the furnace out. Now we have this behemoth. We built this giant LVL beam to hold up the ceiling, but then we decided to use an I-beam instead, so now this is not doing anything. So we're gonna try to get it out of here. And this could be a little fun because we built this thing in the basement, so we have no idea if we can actually get it out in one piece or not. All right, Roman, try to pick it up with one hand. Come on, Roman, you can do it.
If something cracks, I'll have a stupid story to tell people in the future. I lifted it. That's good enough. Before something breaks.
With your spurs. There you go. There we have it. This is much cleaner. We can actually hear ourselves think a little bit. So our next step is to get started in the underground movie theater. And the first thing that we are going to do is right there, we have a conduit that passes beneath our footing for the hot water line that is going to heat the floor of the underground movie theater. And we have this side exposed, but we do not have this side exposed. So we're gonna do some digging in the mud. After a bit of digging and a little bit of wrestling, we now have our 1-inch supply and return line passing through the footing and into the underground movie theater. What we're gonna do with these two lines is we're gonna mount a manifold right here, and then we're gonna take these two lines and supply water to the manifold. So then once we actually start laying the heated floor lines down here in the underground movie theater, we just have to run them to the manifold instead of having to run all of the lines through our conduit and all the way to the other side of the house. So these two supply lines are going to make our heated floor job much easier. For our next step, we are going to be laying down some dimple board. This next step is super overkill and definitely not necessary, but we have everything exposed, so we're just gonna do it while we're here. But we have the outside of the wall already waterproofed. And on the inside of the wall, we have a tile line that runs right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the dimple board that we just cut and we're gonna run it up to about here. So it's gonna sit like this. And then that way, if in the future, if our waterproofing on the outside for whatever reason decides that it's not going to work, and let's say there's a little crack or something where some water is able to get through, it will simply hit the inside of our wall and get stuck behind that dimple board, and then it will be able to pass under the dimple board to our interior perimeter drain tile. So we're kind of damp proofing the walls or preventing the walls from ever being able to seep out into the room. Like I said, probably not necessary in the slightest with all the waterproofing we have on the outside, but we have everything exposed right now, and we found that dimple board for two and a half rolls for the price of one. So it's pretty cheap insurance, and while we're here is the time to do it. It has now been 24 hours. Let's check on our flag test. Ah, look at that. We got a new guy growing right there, and then the ones from yesterday have grown a lot. On the test where we had 25 yesterday, I found 11 new ones today, so they should all be up in that area. That's a pretty solid emergence test. Now let's see how the other one's doing. The yellow flags are the new flags, and we found 6 of them. Okay, here we go. Back to the dimple board. We are 2/3 of the way done. We just have the main theater room left to go, plus the bump out. My dad needs some help with the sprayer. See if they can do this with no hands. Hey, look at that. Hey, Dad.
Hey, cool. So I need that on off, don't I?
I helped my dad fix one problem, but then we found another. Back to the bump out. Break for a moment. I was just walking by my truck and I got thinking, I have now had this thing for over a year, so I'm going to do my 1-year review. Before I get started, big thank you to Sid Dillon in the Blair, Nebraska location for getting me inside of this truck. Full transparency, I have zero brand loyalty when it comes to pretty much all pieces of equipment, especially trucks. So I didn't buy this because it's a Chevy. I bought it because I liked it. This pickup truck is the model year 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 HD. This one has the 6.6 liter gasoline engine in it with the Allison transmission. This truck is spec'd in the custom trim, and we got the full 4-door package. So that means we have the really nice big back seat. On our operation, we primarily use this truck as a pulling truck for our skid loader and for our mini excavator, and then we'll have the occasional hay bale behind it every now and again as well. But probably 50% of the time when it's pulling something, it's pulling a 15,000 pound load. And as far as mile accumulation goes, this truck is by no means means a pavement princess. It spends a majority of its time on gravel roads or out in the fields. So let's take a look and see what we got for miles here. 11,200. I'm gonna start with the good, and then I'm gonna jump to the bad, and then last but not least, we'll cover the ugly. First up, this is a really nice looking truck. My favorite part is definitely the front. The 6.6 liter gasoline engine inside of this thing is an absolute powerhouse. We have a 7.3 liter diesel on the farm, and I would put this head to head with that one any day of the week. The 10-speed Allison transmission is an absolute masterpiece. You literally cannot feel the truck shift. I don't know what kind of insulation they use inside of these doors, but when you're driving, this thing is quiet. I like the push-button tailgate. Nice big bed. The back seat has a lot of leg room, and when you flip up the seat, you could literally sleep down here if you wanted to. I really appreciate the simplicity of the display. And the screen is actually a pretty decent size. Since I live on a gravel road, this next one is a big deal to me. We have cleaned this truck one time since we've got it. And this is all of the dust accumulation that we have over the course of 9 months living primarily on gravel. I have seen dashes be so bad, it is night and day difference when you rub your finger over it, but this is not bad at all. It definitely needs a cleaning, but the dust accumulation inside of the cab, I would say, is very low. Also, when you're working at night, there are these two buttons right here where you can turn on lights for basically surround lighting. It's a little bit hard to see because we have the lights in the background, but on the back of the mirrors, in the back of the cab, it lights everything up really well, and there's even one on the back. So you basically get a full 360 around your truck with some nice floodlights. That wraps up all the things that I like about the truck, so here are the things that I don't like about the truck. Pickup trucks generally do not get good fuel mileage, but to be honest, I thought this truck would do a little bit better than what it does. Cruising down the highway, she gets 13 miles per gallon. If you're maxing out her pulling capacity, she does 5. In the 11,000 miles, it averaged 9.9 miles per gallon. I do not like the visibility from the cab. This big old hood makes it hard to see things that are in front of you. Like right now, we have that 35-gallon barrel of oil sitting 15 feet in front of us, and from inside of the cab, we cannot see that whatsoever. And then on the right side, with the way the A-post is with the mirror, makes a pretty big blind spot right there, because we actually have 3 55-gallon barrels of oil sitting right there. When you're sitting inside of here, you cannot see them whatsoever. And then last but not least, this truck has remote start. If you take your keys with you, it works good, but if you leave your keys inside of the truck and then you try to use your app to remote start, it does not work. I understand why they do that, but for me, that's annoying, so it is a negative. As for the ugly, where the tailpipe comes out of the truck, it's underneath of the truck instead of being a little further back, so all the exhaust condensation sticks right to the back bumper, as well as the tailgate, so all the dust sticks to it, so it makes it really hard to keep it clean. If you're sitting in the driver's seat and you go to turn on your flood lighting, that one on the mirror will hit you right in the eyeballs. And then last but not least, the Bluetooth connection is an absolute joke. When you're sitting here on your phone, it will not connect half of the time, but when you go 150 feet away and somebody moves your truck, it will connect up like that. So I actually disconnected all of the Bluetooth stuff and I just run the cord for that reason. Once again, big thank you to Sid Dillon in Blair, Nebraska for giving me in this. They were super competitive on their pricing, and I had an absolutely wonderful experience when I was buying this truck. I'll include their link down in the description if you want to check them out. Otherwise, let's get back to the project. There it is, there it is, there it is. We have everything installed all the way around. Beautiful. How do you feel, Roman?
Beautiful.
Now that we got this stuff in place, it makes a whole lot more sense. So let's say one of these little holes decides it's eventually going to leak water. The water will now run down the wall. And then there's this little baby gap right here behind the dimple board. That water will run down that, and then it will be under the dimple board, and then the tile runs about right here. So now we have a nice channel for it, just in case if water gets behind, it will be able to run to the tile, and then it won't come through the wall, it won't come on top of the floor, and it'll help keep the basement nice and dry. Next up, we're setting up the laser so that way we can install our emergency floor drains. Roman and I are struggling with this grade stick a little bit. They have this thing laid out in tenths of feet. Whatever 1/10 of a foot is supposed to be, I don't know.
Inches divided by 16, there's 12 inches in 1 foot. Makes perfect sense. Easy to work with.
At least it's not the metric system, because that would be super
That would be so
confusing.
confusing.
Floor drain number 1, the top of it needs to be somewhere in here. We gotta dig down a little bit to get it to fit. Perfect 5,000 PSI mix. There is emergency drain number 1. And there is drain number 2. These floor drains, while they may seem redundant with all the waterproofing we have on the outside of the wall, the inside of the wall, as well as underneath of us, they are still very important. And they're here for one purpose, which is emergencies. If, let's say we're gone for a few days and a pipe were to burst or a toilet were to overrun and not shut off, these little guys are gonna kick in and allow us to come home to a basement that just has a little bit of water on the floor instead of being 4 feet deep. I don't know if this is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but this is what we did. The original basement floor is at the height of the top of that wall. And so all the septic stuff over there is way up there, and everything down here is 6 feet lower. So if we have any water down here that we want to get up there, we have to pump it. We didn't want to have to mess with pumps for these emergency floor drains that honestly probably will never get used. So what we decided to do is tap into the tile lines that are 3 feet beneath my feet. So I'm currently standing on about 3 feet of rock with a drain pipe at the bottom of it. And so we ended up putting our emergency drains right over the top of those rock pockets. So if water gets into this, it will simply just fall into this rock, and then it'll fall 3 feet down to the drainage tile and then get taken away. Next up, Roman and I have the table saw and these 4x8 sheets of insulation, and we're gonna cut these into 6-inch strips. Roman and I have never poured flat work in a basement before, so what we're gonna do to try to make things as level as possible is take some insulation and we're gonna mount it to the wall, and we're gonna use the laser to get it nice and flat at the height that we're looking for it to be. And then once we end up pouring concrete, the concrete will go against the insulation. We'll have it insulated on the side, so this will also be our expansion board, and then we'll have the insulation underneath, and then we'll also have an area where we can put our screed board to make things nice and level.
And I just got a short briefing what we're doing too. It feels awesome to say this. The underground movie theater is ready
for insulation. Now that we have everything installed, what's gonna happen next is we're gonna put in 2 inches of spray foam insulation on the entire floor, and it will come over this dimple mat as well. It'll fill this little void under here, so it'll probably come up to about this part of our insulation. And then we're gonna have 6 inches of concrete. So our concrete is going to be the height of the top of our insulation. And since we leveled this all the way around the entire underground movie theater with the laser, we're gonna be able to use this as a screeding edge to be able to maintain level all throughout everything. And then with the concrete poured up to here, we're now gonna have insulation between the concrete and our wall. So since this is gonna be heated floor, then this is gonna help keep our heat in. And then with our dimple board behind that, if we get any moisture on the wall, it will be able to wick down on the back side of the dimple board. It will go behind the insulation, and then underneath of our concrete, an insulation to our tile lines. It feels really good getting done what we have got done so far, because everything here has been the hard part and everything left is the easy part. Once the spray foam guys come in, it's gonna take them like 2 hours to get the spray foam laid down. And then after that, we just have heated floor lines, and then we have rebar, and then we are ready to pour concrete.